Hi everyone, this is Jill from the North Woods, and I appreciate you being here. We're going to give people a few minutes to join if they're going to join. We're doing a little bit of different time because you might not know this. On Thursdays at this time, I am on another podcast that is a panel talking about tech topics. And that one is called In Touch with iOS. They decided this week to meet on Wednesday, and so I'm doing my show just a little bit early. Thanks so much for being there. Well, this week was 0.8 pounds, and that's still not at full speed. So the average, as I mentioned before, was 1.4 pounds. And now it is right around 0.6 as an average, which is much less than it used to be. And so I'm kind of looking at a couple different things about it. And we're going to talk about that. Am I in a plateau? The official, am I just in a plateau? Now, in the past, when I had plateaus, they were weights that I was at for a really long period of time. So I was 149 in 8th grade. I was 186 from high school to college. And so I did get stuck at 186. When I lost weight on my own, I was stuck there for 6 months. But with Mounjaro, it was really, I stopped losing weight for probably 3 weeks, and then it kicked back in and it kept going. I don't remember ever being at this weight. So it doesn't feel like it's that kind of plateau, but that's what we're going to talk about is plateaus and getting stuck. Now, hey, how you doing? Thanks for coming. One thing that I mentioned before is there's another person on YouTube who frequently says that there is a 70-week stopping point with Mounjaro, that it just stops working and at 70 weeks. And so then part of me was like, well, I am at like week 74. I kind of said that this wasn't going as quickly as it was before. And so I started doing research, looking at study papers and seeing if what she was saying was true. I just sort of poo-pooed it, primarily because I have seen a lot of people lose 130, 150 pounds on Mounjaro. And so, and I thought, well, wait, what's the deal with that? They lost so much weight. How could this stop working as well? And so I went back to their, probably it was a half a dozen people, went back to their 1-year anniversary of going on Mounjaro video. And sure enough, they mentioned it was slowing down. And then I started doing some time calculation. And most of those people who lost 110, 120, 150 pounds have been on it for 2 to 3 years. So it does seem to slow down, because if I had kept the current rate going, I would be done somewhere, like I said, beginning of this year. And right now, at this particular rate, I have about, let's just average and say I have about 30 pounds to go. I like I said, I have a range, and the middle of the range would be 30 pounds more to go. Actually, now 29 pounds. And I would be done if this was me just cooking along at the same pace. So that got me thinking about whether this drug stops working. Like I said, I did some research in that. We'll talk about that. And what do you do with plateaus, and how do you treat them? Because for the time being, I am going to keep going. Now, this was kind of interesting, is my insurance sent us a bulletin. I got it 2 days ago, and it said that essentially they were no longer going to cover Mounjaro or Ozempic for people who were under a 40 BMI. Right now, I'm at a 30 BMI, which is great. Good news. I am happy about that. But I kind of wonder, they were very generous. This was a very generous plan, and they were covering people just for weight loss, not for diabetes. And then if you read down in the clause a little bit, it said, well, there's going to be exceptions made to people who are already on the drug, people who are being treated for diabetes and other issues. So it may not be that it goes away for me. Like I said, no one wants to go and say, yay, I'm diabetic, but in a sense, I might not get taken off of this drug. But I have to tell you, I'm sitting there thinking, if it's not going to work very well for me, and it costs a lot of money, but, not to me, but it does to the insurance company. But here's the other thing, is I mentioned a couple episodes ago, I'm exhausted. I'm pretty tired all the time. I go out with my friend, and we go hiking for a small bit. I come back here and I take a nap. And it has me thinking that while I'm getting my exercise in and I'm doing the things I'm supposed to do, I think that I am less active moment to moment. Because I used to get all three of my watch rings, and I am struggling with the move ring. And someday I'll do a whole thing about this, but basically the move ring is, let's say the green ring on your Apple Watch is you get enough exercise. The blue ring on your Apple Watch is, do I at least stand up for 12 hours, some part of that hour, so I'm just not sitting there hour after hour. The move ring is how many calories above what is just considered to be me as a human being blob am I getting? And it's hoping that you get about 500 calories above it. I have been struggling. Like I get 350, 400. And I'm sitting there thinking, I never had a problem with this ring. Why all of a sudden am I having problems with my move ring when I am exercising and I am getting up? And then I thought, Jill, I think you're just sitting too much because I think I'm pooped. And I think this drug at this dose, like I said, I didn't have any problems with this until I hit 10 milligrams, and that was in February. And so now I'm sitting there thinking, I think that this drug is tiring me out to the point where I am sitting a lot more. I'm going to bed. I mentioned last week, I go to bed nearly an hour earlier than I did to get enough sleep because my heart rate variability. I tried eating more. I tried eating more nutrition. I tried taking more vitamins. I tried drinking more water. And what was the thing that actually works to get my heart rate variability back up so it doesn't think I'm exhausted? An extra hour of sleep. And for someone who spent her whole life having insomnia until I was about 45 years old, me getting too much sleep is bizarre because I did not sleep well at all, and now I'm sleeping too much. So part of me thinks, oh gosh, maybe it's time. Maybe it is time to leave this drug because maybe, and this is the big thing, maybe I leave the drug where it's helping me burn calories, but I start feeling more energetic and I start moving more. People have asked me, they said, well, you've lost, like I said, it's pretty darn close to 80 pounds. Don't you feel great? And I want to say, yeah, I feel great. The truth of the matter is I don't. I am tired a lot of the time. I am tired. And so maybe if I could get that extreme tiredness to go away, which I hear it does when you quit taking this drug, I ramp up my activity and I ramped down the drug. Maybe. Like I said, I'm thinking of all sorts of things. On the listener channel, you get to move and stand easy, but the calorie burn, is the struggle for sure. Yep. And so I'm thinking a couple things. Is that first of all, if my insurance drops me from Mounjaro at the end of the year, I really did hope to do the plan where you titrate down to half, you stay at half for a while, and then you titrate off. If they cut me off from the drug, I might just titrate off and stay off. My friend is, like I said, she's on a compounding Mounjaro. She's working with a brand new company. I've never heard of it, but it is very low cost for her. I think she's talking about $400 for 3 months or something like that. And I could do that too. I could go to compounding. My hope was that, like I said, in March of next year, the Eli Lilly pill should be released for general use. And I was hoping that I could slide off of Mounjaro and slide into that pill, because I think the pill sounds like a pretty perfect, reasonable balance between all of it. I will have to see, how all this timing works. I do believe that because doctors consider diabetes to be chronic, that they are not going to kick me off of this drug. But right now, as it stands, my intention is not to go to 15 milligrams, even if it would help me lose the extra weight. Hold on, wait a minute. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that on camera. I should really need to get a mute button here. But I think that if I went to 15, I would be maybe even more dragged out and more tired. So right now, as it stands, I don't intend on going up to 15. If we look at 29 more pounds to go, and if I'm losing 0.8 pounds a week, let's go and do a little bit of math for that. That comes out to, let's see what we're looking at. So 29 divided by 0.8, that's 36 more weeks. So that's, a little bit more than half of a year. So if my insurance company decides not to kick me off of this drug and let me do it, maybe I just stay on this another half a year. That sort of gets us, again, sort of to that March where I start going out and bird watching again, come off of this drug, maybe to a low dose, maybe get on the pill of the drug and go into birding season and hiking season fully energized. Boy, I would love that. So we'll see how it goes. I'm still pondering my options to be sure. So let's talk a little bit about, thank you, appreciate that. So thanks for the sneezing thing. Yep. So let's talk a little bit about these diet plateaus. So this is what I'm sort of evaluating at this point. What exactly am I at? Am I at the point, this magic 74 number, where the drug stops working? We're going to talk a little bit more about the research studies and that. Or am I just having a plateau? And I mentioned before that I got stuck at plateaus whenever I was at a weight for a long period of time. However, there's other reasons why you have plateaus, and that's what we're going to talk about. So first of all, plateaus are frustrating. Any one of us, like I said, been dieting since I, 8 years old, and you get stuck and it gets frustrating. And many times for me, I have quit diets at that plateau because this isn't working anymore. I'm just not getting anywhere. And unfortunately, that was probably the wrong response to a plateau. It in some ways is your body succeeding at doing what it's designed to do, which is to adapt and protect you and help you live. I anthropomorphize too much, but essentially, like I said, the body is sitting there doing math and saying, Jill has to stay at 96 point, 3 degrees. I'm lower on that now. Jill has to have a heartbeat like this. She has to breathe like this. There's all these autonomic systems in her thing, and it's trying to do math. And when it gets shocked into a rapid weight loss, and make no mistake, losing 76 pounds in, 13, 14 months, that's pretty rapid. And it gets panicked. Like, I hope I can keep Jill alive. Then there's the whole, oh no, what if we're in a famine? I have to start hunkering down and keep Jill alive during this horrible famine. This worked for us for all of the history of mankind, except for the last 50 years and in places like the United States. So the body's doing what it's supposed to do. So we do have weight stalls in some cases because, again, the body remembers an old weight and it says, hey, I remember this math. I'm going to stick to this math. That's part of it. When you get there, it's not about fighting your biology because your biology is trying to keep you alive. It's about how can we work with it instead of fighting it. And, when you start on Mounjaro, so let me just to say it this way. I sort of looked at it this morning, and the first 6 months I was on Mounjaro, I lost 39 pounds. The second 6 months I was on Mounjaro, I lost 29 pounds. And now I've lost about 7 pounds in that last quarter, and that was starting in June. That would have been my year anniversary. So that is a drop. It's not nothing, but it still is considerably less than it usually is. And like I said, Mounjaro has been magical for me. I am blessed to have had this experience for sure because, I'm hoping now to keep this off. So initially when you lose weight, you probably all have done this for all of you who have tried to lose weight, is that you start losing water weight. That usually is that first, you go on a diet, right? And you immediately kick out 6 pounds and you're like, wow, this is working. A lot of that has to do with what they call water and glycogen. Glycogen is stored in carbohydrates in your muscle and your liver, and it holds on to water, about 3 to 4 grams of water per gram of carbohydrate. And then that starts to burn out of you, usually because when people die, they go on a lower carb diet, they stop eating as much salt, and so that initial kick usually is a lot of water weight. And then after a few weeks, your body starts to adjust, and that easy water is gone, and now you're facing true weight loss, true fat loss. And so your body's metabolism begins to adapt, and it keeps going through this process as we have gone on. Mounjaro, for me, like I said, took 6-month plateaus and turned them into 3-week plateaus. I'm not complaining about plateaus at all. But the idea is that we have a basal, what they call a basal metabolic rate. And that means the number of calories you just burn sitting there on your couch being a blob. Like I said, that's where the Apple Watch is estimating it and then saying, hey, just get 500 more than that. But still, the body is keeping that basal rate going, and at every pound you drop that basal metabolic rate just a little bit. And some of that has to do with muscle loss. That's why doing strength training and resistance training is so important. Putting on, like I said, I put on 12 pounds of muscle in this whole experience. That has plateaued, by the way. I would say about 8 months ago, I hit sort of a peak of muscle, and I've kind of hung out there. That is very typical. Muscle at a certain point, beyond, like, if you were a blob like me and a person like, who sits in a chair all the time and live the life of Wally, you didn't have much physical strength going on. And you will build it up, and then you'll hit a point where it becomes harder and harder to build it up, particularly in women. We just aren't built with the same hormones to keep going, but men will get there eventually too. The other part of it is leptin is the hormone that messages and says that we're full. And so you have that going on. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone, and that is telling you that you're hungry. And then the thyroid hormones also slow down a little bit more. So every time you do lose weight, your hormonal balance changes. And so they have an acronym called NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Isn't that a good word? Which means that this is not necessarily you exercising. It's also not you just being an alive human being. It could be fidgeting. It could be getting up and doing the dishes, or getting a drink, or just moving around. And it accounts for hundreds of calories a day. But suddenly, if you're like me and you're starting to feel tired and you're feeling exhausted and you're not moving around, that's can be part of you not having as many burned calories. But it also could be your body kind of whispering to you, please stop dieting. Please try to go find some food. We're good here, right? It's a nervous person. And so it is trying to keep you alive. So the question is, how does gaining muscle affect how you're losing weight? Does it not change enough to confuse your weight? It doesn't. Okay, we'll get into that here in just a minute. But what it does is it does good things, because when you put on muscle weight, your muscles burn calorie at twice the rate as fat cells do. So your metabolic rate will actually go up as you put on muscle. But as you lose weight and you lose fat, your metabolic rate also goes down, because you have less body that your metabolism needs to keep alive. I'm a much smaller body. And so it says, oh, well, Jill doesn't need 1,400 calories. She needs 13. I think I'm at 1,307 when I started at I think it was like 1,370 when I started this whole piece. But because I have put on muscle, that has allowed me to keep that number pushed up, because muscles do need calories. And so it does it. And yeah, so that's part of it. And like I said, your body's just trying to protect you. It's just trying to help you survive and interpret what is going on. And so it's trying to conserve, slow you down, and hopefully we all survive this horrible famine that you're going through. But essentially, it's trying to do it. So then you get hit with a plateau. And the other thing is, does your body remember weights that you used to be at? And the answer is it does. Now, this is where the second part of it comes in, is that your body remembers your weight. But this was what I thought was an interesting thing, study. There was a study done about some of the cultures that we no longer do in the United States, where people would carry large amounts of food stores and water miles and miles and miles. The body is actually remembering how much weight not just that person has, but how much weight they carry. So that if they're carrying, 40 liters of water back from the well to their homestead every day, the body goes, oh, there's Sally. She likes to, she only weighs 97 pounds, but she carries 30 extra pounds with her every day for 3 hours. So it remembers additional weight too, which is kind of cool. And that's where the study came out. This study's been a big part of those weight vests. You've probably been seeing a lot of people buying and wearing weight vests while they exercise. That's because the body is actually not just calculating you, it's calculating you and everything that you typically carry, which is amazing to me. So, keep that in mind too. So it does remember that. And then if you've been overweight for a really long time, the fat cells change, their genes, their size. I can tell you, I can feel when I was in the midst of losing this weight, I had kind of lumps on the sides of my legs, and those were oversized fat cells, and those have come down and then they've gone away. So the fat cells now are rechangeling. They are also hormone producers. So their chemical signaling goes away too. It is there to signal so that it tells the body, hey, don't forget about us. We need energy too, us fat cells, so the body does not forget states that you used to be in. It's probably a little bit like muscle memory, but fat memory as well. And then our immune system also joins in the action, because certain immune cells, there's something called a CD4 T cells, which I'm not a doctor, so I'm reading this on research studies. It stores a lot of information, and some information seemingly about previous obesity. And for whatever reason, it tries to regain some of that obesity back. It is hoping to get back to where you were, because we were healthy back then. Let's just get back to it. It doesn't understand the full health picture, I guess to say. And so they call that an epigenetic change. And so then these chemical tags also alter how our DNA behaves. Our body essentially is wired to defend its weight. And wearing weight, playing a game and playing Dragon Ball Z. Yep, that's right. And I just bought actually a weight vest. I'm going to try it out and see. I'll talk about that at a different time. So the brain is just targeting a bunch of different things and going through a lot of processes, some hormonal, some immune system, some metabolic mathematics, and trying to maintain your metabolism, your hunger, your hormones, and get it all into place. And so then the question always seems to be then, well, why are we having these plateaus? What does this have to do with plateaus? And that's, like I said, part of it is part of the plateaus. Is it remembering weight? Part of the plateaus. So I work in software that tracks medical research. And so I was talking to a fellow and his friend who is an epidemiologist, and they were talking about plateaus, because I was stuck at a real nasty one. That was, before, when I got stuck at the 186 again. And he said that essentially your body at some points will say, whoa, 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 too fast. Let's just slow this down. Let's just give it a hot moment so that we can do math again. We can figure everything out. You can survive whatever famine is going on right now, because it doesn't know you're not in a famine. You're trying to lose weight. And your body, for a period of time, will choke back everything on weight loss in order to try to get to a new math calculation. Eventually, once it feels stable again, it will continue then to lose weight. And so that you will get through a lot of plateaus by fighting through it, essentially going through and persisting through that. Keep your good eating plans, keep your good exercise plan, and then, eventually it'll snap and then it'll start going again. So that's where I'm coming to my point. Am I done with Mounjaro, that it's no longer being as effective for me, that we're now about half the weight loss that I was just even 6 months ago? Or am I just in a plateau and just keep going and it will rebound? So I'm going to give it, basically till the end of the year to sort of see where we're at. The other question comes in too, is that whenever we hit plateaus, the question is, am I slowing down? And that's where I think I am. I'm going to try to step up my exercise a little bit more and see if I can't increase my exercise in the morning when I'm fresh and everything's going great, to get a few more calories in, maybe another 50 calories every morning, maybe, I don't know about 100 calories, but about another 50 calories. Is your eating creeping up? Just a few more bites. You can really quickly, depending on what it is, destroy, a good calorie deficit by just eating something that's very high in calories, but is just, a little bit of it. Think, nuts or chocolate or cream or those kinds of things. So the question is your food sneaking up? It's very hard for me. I don't know about you, but on Mounjaro, it was interesting. I bought myself a hot dish at Trader Joe's, and it's good stuff. It has a lot of protein in it. It has an insane amount of protein in it, actually. And it has whole fiber in it. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's going to sound good. It's a nice rustic Northwoods kind of meal. It's getting chilly outside. And so I usually can eat that kind of thing on Wednesday before my shot, because that's usually when I'm a little bit more into food, I guess, to say it like that. And so I cooked it for lunch, and then I thought, oh, Jill, you didn't make dinner plans for tonight. And I thought, well, I could eat, because I used to eat half of this and then one on one night and one on the other night. Now I'm barely eating a fourth or a fifth of it. So I thought, okay, well, I can have another fifth of it for dinner tonight. And then I took the shot and I'm like, I'm not eating that. It is so funny how this thing takes something that looked previously good to you. Oh, I want to eat that. That sounds like a really good idea. That'll be my dinner tonight. And then you take the shot and you're like, oh, I don't want to eat that at all. I told my friend, she said that it would make her very sad if she was on Mounjaro because she loves food so much. I said, here's the funny thing about it is, if you took it, not only would you not feel like eating those kinds of food, but you wouldn't even be sad about it because it's just not even on your plate anymore. You know what I mean? It's not even in your brain anymore. So I thought that was kind of funny. So that's the question. Is the food creeping up? In my case, it is not creeping up, but I think my activity is creeping down. So we're going to see if we can tackle that. Then making sure you get enough protein, because that's going to support your muscles. Am I losing muscle mass? Now, the truth of it is, I noticed that I have one of those muscle scale kind of measures. It thinks that I lost 0.6 pounds of muscles. So a little bit over a half pound of muscle, which isn't bad considering I gained 12 and that most people lose a lot of muscle during dieting. It's not entirely bad, but it could be an indication. Jill, are you getting enough protein? Are you eating enough? That kind of question, because I'm still exercising and I'm still doing a lot of strength training. And then the other part of it is too, that are there ways you could just throw in an couple extra 100 calories of, even if it's not exercise, calorie loss? Walk a dog around the block a couple of times, stand up while you're taking calls. I actually got myself an exercise bike that rolls under. So this is a up-down seat. So when I work, I can actually raise this desk up, roll this exercise bike, because it's made by the same company that makes this desk. And when there are meetings where I'm not presenting, I could do a little biking. So I'm going to work on that a little bit more. Are there ways that you can increase the amount of calories you're rolling through, just to see if that's maybe the problem that you're having? And then the other part of it is stepping up. So I've been doing lots and lots of weight training, but not as much cardio. And so I have a couple of high intensity training exercise things I can do. So I'm going to try that. The question is are you having sleep deprivation? Sleep deprivation lowers the leptin raises the ghrelin. So have you ever noticed, I noticed that too when I was gaining weight and putting on weight, is that essentially when I'm super tired, you just feel like eating all the time back before Mounjaro. And that is because the body's like, oh, Jill's super low energy right now. Let's try to increase her energy by introducing more calories. That's why, one of the reasons why when you are sleep deprived, and like I said, I had insomnia for all those years, you eat more. And so for me, fixing my eating had a lot to do with fixing my sleeping. And then I started eating less. But it also means that when you are not sleeping well, cortisol is produced. So you make melatonin when you're going to sleep. When you're waking up, cortisol injects into your body to sort of introduce this momentary stress, like time to wake up, kind of thing. But if cortisol is hanging around you longer than that, it is a fight or flight type of hormone. It is meant to help you run from the tiger, kind of thing. And if it is sticking around longer, it will promote fat storage, particularly around the gut. And so you have to wonder, am I stressed right now? Am I not getting enough sleep? Is it possible my cortisol levels are way too high and just doing something relaxing? I'm a knitter. And so that's one of the things I mentioned last week. I am really focusing in on reducing the amount of stress I have because I think my stress has been too high lately. I've been working on a project at work for the last year and it was pretty intense. And now that project's over, so I am working on a de-stressing kinds of rituals, including everything from prayer to walks, time outdoors, and getting back into my knitting again. The other part of it too, like I said, is you just got to be patient with yourself. And so I'm not going to freak out about the fact that my weight is slower. First of all, I'm still losing weight and I'm still losing 0.8 pounds a week, which before Mounjaro, I would have been super excited about. And now we're like, oh, just that, put it back into proportion because I am still done in half a year, even at this rate. So think about it and maybe try to, if you can, put it in proportion for yourself. If you have stalled, maybe this is a chance for you to learn to sort of work on maintaining, like I said, wait for your body to get that new equilibrium and see if there's something you can do. But if it's not really resolving itself, it will. You just have to give it time. If nothing else is really wrong, you're getting the sleep, you're eating the protein, you're eating a good diet, you're getting enough calories, and you're not eating too many calories, and you're still up and moving around. If you've done all the things, don't worry about it and just give your body time to do new math and remember exactly what it is trying to do. So I hope that kind of gives you hope or at least an action plan. So for the next couple weeks, I'm going to work on making sure, like I said, I'm going to rev up my high intensity training a little bit in the morning. I'm going to try to become a little bit more active, although, like I said, I've just been kind of pooped in general. And then the next question is what does GLP-1 do for plateaus? There have been many studies. There's a lot of studies about GLP-1, believe it or not. But essentially, the one thing to know is that it does help with plateaus. People have reported that plateaus are a lot less on GLP-1s. So let's get back to the lady who I talked about who said that this drug stops working. There was a couple of really big studies out there that did, has been tracking. Like Ozempic's been around for, I think, almost 20 years. And Mounjaro is now probably about 5 to 7 years old. Been around for a long time. And now we got 8% of our population taking these drugs. We're getting a lot of data on it. And there's a lot of trials out there. But essentially, the highest effect of GLP-1s happens within the first 6 months. And this one study that came out found that the drug's effectiveness tapers off somewhere around month 9 to month 12. Well, when did I taper off? Right at month 12. That's when I said, oh, let's go jump up into, the next dose and see if this can work better. And while it has worked better, it hasn't worked the way it did before this. So there is something to what the other podcaster or YouTube person says. It does lose its effectiveness after a certain period of time. That doesn't mean you have to race up in dose because that's where the side effects are and that's where you're going to feel the full hit of this. is on higher doses because I still lost 76 pounds keeping myself at lower doses for a longer period of time. Now, everybody's different. I'm not a doctor. And they talk about that there's some people who are super responders who just lose weight like crazy on this thing. And then there's people who are slow responders and they struggle even with being on a GLP-1. And I think I'm sort of right there in the middle of it. I am. But, you know, if you race up in dose, you will eventually hit a limit if you have a lot of weight to lose. But also you're going to hit the worst of the side effects. And so it's kind of shifting in gear. The idea is that right now the drug is still working on me where I'm not hungry. Food looks unappealing to me because I took my shot today. Slow digestion, I still have that going on. That's still there. And really everything is still working since, like it was day one for me, except I'm exhausted, right? So that part is a little bit different. But, you know, that makes me think this drug is still working for me. I don't understand the nature of what they're saying, that basically the effectiveness goes away after week 12. And that might be the food emptying process. I also believe, and this is without evidence, is that, like I said, I think there are people who have been obese for so long, their metabolisms just break. And I think that's where I was, because I was able to lose weight. Even being really overweight, I was able to lose weight on my own all the way up to about 10 years ago. And like I said, during the start of the pandemic, I started this same diet, exercising, working out, and doing all the things I'm doing right now. And I lost 16 pounds in the course of 3 years. Think that we abuse our body too much. Something just breaks in us. I like I said, I have no evidence for it, but this drug, the GLP-1, seems to kick the metabolism back into gear again. And maybe that's the part that starts to have diminishing returns, because like I said, all the side effects, the stomach emptying, that's all still working. The controlling the cravings, the mental parts of this, all still working. So I'm kind of perplexed at, if this isn't working anymore, which aspect is not working? I'm not sure in all of that. So again, I'm going to reevaluate this. I'm going to take it slowly. I'm going to work on the things that I'm going to do. And that brings me then, hopefully to the end of this year, where then I can take a harder look at this and then know a little bit more if my insurance is going to keep me on this, or if it's not going to keep me on this. I will talk to my doctor the week after Thanksgiving, and so I'll get some information from him. Like I said, he's a cool guy. He's a public health doctor, and I think he's got a good amount of sense on all of this. So I'm going to keep working on this. I have time to the end of the year. Believe it or not, it's like 8 weeks to the end of the year. But I have some time to sort of see where we're at. I still have the possibility of easily losing 10 to 15 pounds by the end of this year. And that will put me about 15 pounds away from what my goal is. And so this is not the end of the world for me. I know some of you have more to lose. And so each of us, because bodies are each different. You stick a drug in me, I'm going to react in one way. You stick a drug in you, you might react in a different way. And unfortunately, we're almost all so uniquely individual. It's hard to tell, you're going to take this drug and this is exactly what's going to happen. It will vary. So I just want to let you know that Vision Pros, all the gadgets, and we talk about the news of the week when it comes to Apple. And there's another video of me done by the Silicon Valley Mac Users Group. This is a replay of what I did at the conference talking about how to get fit and healthy with the Apple ecosystem. I am hoping to turn this into a bigger series where I actually show you how to do some of these things. The Mac user groups, they are people who are well aware of the world of Mac and Apple and all the things. So they would, if I said, hey, create a focus mode, they would know how to do that. I would like to make some tutorials for people who maybe don't know much about technology, because this whole time I've been keeping healthy with the Apple ecosystem. It hasn't really helped me lose weight, as we've talked about, because we're a Monjero channel. But if you want to see an overview of what my presentation was, it's about 45 minutes long. And again, it's called the Silicon Valley Mac User Group, SVMUG. All right. Any questions in the crowd? I know plateaus are a huge topic for people and can kind of get people depressed a little bit about it, but keep persisting about it. You know, this will pass. All right. Well, I appreciate you all being there. Like I said, at the hour, I will be on the podcast In Touch with iOS, and you can watch me there if you want to. If you have anything to say, put comments right down here. Are you going through a plateau? Have you found a way of getting around your plateaus? Or you can email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. Thanks so much and have a great week.